No big deal.
Got it. I'm ready to roll, man.
All right. Recorder is on. Anytime you're ready, rock it.
This is Mark Winters bringing you some positive vibes from beautiful Houston, Texas. And you are listening to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, reminding you, bring some extra protons with you today and let them shine.
Nice. Nailed it on the first go. Well done. I love it. Let's go grab some extra protons.
That's it, man.
All right, brother. Let me hit stop. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Finlay. Thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
I'm great. Excited to be here. Thank you, Jeff, for having me.
Yes. And, you know, we all need to go on heart medication because of the tech panic of the beginning of the show. But that's okay. We survived and we're here.
We're learning new skills.
We're learning new skills. We're skill building. And speaking of which, you're at stackingyourcareer.com. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your life, business, etc. today.
Sure. So my real day job is being a fractional and interim CHRO or HR leader for small to mid-sized businesses. And then I also teach at college level and am involved with Columbia University and another university near me called Fairleigh Dickinson. And in that journey, I've started a passion project where I had the opportunity over the last few years to write a book called Skill Stacking, Taking Ownership of Your Career in Changing Times. And so that has been my passion project, is to really help people understand that you don't have to start over. You have a ton of skills available to you today. That this is not a revolution. This is an evolution, as my parents used to tell me. It's a matter of just figuring out, how do I put all these skills in a different way and then move in a different direction.
Yeah. And the thing is like, I don't know about you, but, you know, when I was kids, there was like stories about people being afraid of their jobs getting taken over by machines. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's the same story. It's just a different machine. You know, there used to be a guy, it was his job to pick up horse poop, but we don't need that job anymore. And that's okay.
So it's interesting you say it is. So I have two teenagers and then a 10-year-old or almost 11-year-old who thinks he's a teenager because he hangs out with them all day. Sure. And I love to torture them by playing a podcast that's all about the history. It's called History That Doesn't Suck. It's just kind of interesting U.S. history. Okay. And there was an episode I just listened to the other week about the Transcontinental Railroad. And they talked about the uprising and the backlash in society because everyone said, you're taking away our jobs. And I thought, holy cow, we've been doing this since the Transcontinental Railroad, where we were
I'm sure before that. Yes. It's just one example on a long road. Right.
And you went, it's just happening. Cyclical.
Yeah.
We keep coming back around.
Yes. Yeah. So before we get too deep into that, because I have so many fun things to talk about, 20 years of life in the Air Force makes you build some skills, whether you want to or not. But let's talk about you and how you stack some skills together to get here, right? So where did you grow up, and so what was like high school like for you?
Interesting. So I always start, this is that like party line you give when people are like, tell me one interesting thing about you. Sure. And I always say, by the time I graduated high school, I had attended, I think it was 7 schools because I was the child of a father who was super ambitious in the newspaper industry. Talk about another industry that's fascinating now. And so to be promoted or do new things, you constantly just moved. And because there's only one newspaper in town. And so you kept moving. Right. And used to say that was really the part where I learned very quickly in life that I could just reemerge as a different person each time, right?
Right.
Not
Yeah.
different. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, my
But
core
you
is
have,
the same.
you have an opportunity to edit out the things you maybe didn't like.
Yeah. And I remember walking in. And so the way it comes back to high school is I started high school in a brand new school in upstate New York. I'd moved from South Jersey, gone to upstate New York.
You can change
and I
your
remember
hair if you want to.
you could change your hair, you could do whatever you wanted.
Exactly.
And I remember thinking in middle school, I was a little too quiet, right? And I don't know. I mean,
Sure.
as reflective as you can be at, whatever age you're at, 14 at that time.
14 is
but then
huge.
thought, I'm going to go into this and be more personable and get out there and get more involved.
Yeah.
And I did. And I loved high school purely for the fact that I forced myself to do things I wouldn't have done. Like I played field hockey. We lost every single game in that school. I mean, we were probably the worst team in the whole state of New York, but I loved it because it forced me to get out there. It forced me to do sports, which was not my thing. It forced me to make, those team connections. And that's really at a young age, I thought, this is interesting, right? Like you're not stuck being one person, but you got to be able to get out there and say, I'm willing to do something a little uncomfortable for me and then see where it goes from here.
That's nice.
No big plan, I have 14-year-olds. They have no plan, but it's interesting to see it play out in real time, even if you don't have a plan.
I had a thing. I remember, I don't know why it happened. But my mom took me to Prangies, which was the nice clothes store in Menominee, Michigan. It was actually Marinette, Wisconsin places no one has ever heard of. But she bought me this set of clothes, right? And I was like, okay, she's buying me these clothes, right? And it turned out that I wore those to a freshman dance. And, girls liked it. And I was like, maybe mom has something going on here.
She's figured this out. This is how this
not. Freely admit that. I was like, aha, I need to listen to mom. She knows what's going on with this clothes stuff.
It is amazing. So we put my son in a new school and he's got to wear a uniform and a blazer. And I did tell my husband at one point, I was like, wow, he's like a whole different human being, right? Because, and I think to your point, it was like putting on a blazer and a tie every day
you
at
assume
14.
this identity you've seen on TV suddenly. I'm just like, well, I have to go like this.
I have to be more serious and mature.
Geez, I should wash this ketchup off my face.
It's amazing the personas we take on as we evolve.
Being human is just so weird, and it keeps going. Okay, so I'm assuming you went to college, but what happened after high school for you? What was that like? Or maybe what was the sort of drama? Was there drama of am I going to get in? What am I going to do? What was that like for you?
So interestingly, I applied to a ton of schools. I was upstate New York. I planned to hang out at a SUNY school in upstate New York. I actually thought I was going to be a speech pathologist. That was kind of my direction I was thinking about. Interestingly, I think I just heard one of your podcasts where you were talking to someone who was also going to be a speach pathologist and became an audiologist or something.
Yeah.
But
I had quite a few of those guys. Okay.
Everybody diverts, I guess.
Sure.
But so I was going to do that. And then it was interesting. I was the first child. And so my father had made me apply to every single school he could think of to do it, to get scholarship money. And a scholarship came in to a school in New Jersey, Fairleigh Dickinson. And it was a whim. We had seen a bumper sticker on a car and he was like, oh, you're going to apply to that and see what happens. And I got a full ride. And my father said, you go in there. And there was no speech pathology. And I went, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. So he was an accountant by trade. So I went in and said, okay, I guess I'll become an accountant. And that was actually what I went into school with. And you
can't go wrong with that. I mean, you're going to get a job.
You're gonna,
You might hate it, but
which I did.
Sure.
I did.
Yeah.
This is back before they gave you computers and AI
Yeah.
that
Oh,
does
yeah.
all the grunt work,
So,
right? And
ledgers.
so
Yeesh.
the ledgers, the big ledger books, I had the
Yeah.
calculator with the paper that
Right.
printed out
Right.
that
Right.
you had to
Gaza,
attach
gaza,
to your
gaza, gaza,
papers.
gaza, gaza.
Yes.
The
And you
10T.
so
Oh,
much fun.
yeah.
And then if you screwed it up, you had to start over again. It was so much fun. And I think I lasted about 6 months and said, "Oh my goodness, I can't do this." And
6
I had
months in
been put in
college, or did you actually get a job?
I actually got a job and lasted 6 months sitting in a cubicle, like the worst cubicle in the office, where like you were surrounded by walls, right? For hours a day.
You
And
could have been like off-site or in a basement, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
no human being around. And I said, wow, this is not for me. And interestingly, I was reporting up to a partner at the time. It was a firm that was just starting to grow. And he had just been put in charge of HR. And I had said to him, I just don't think this is for me. And he said, how about HR? I don't want to do it. So if you can figure it out, it's yours. Right. And I went, I'm game. Let's go. Right. Let's see what it. And I remember, I was 20 years old because I got in and started working right away while I was going through school because I was an overachiever at heart. And I remember him just giving me all this stuff, like you need to build out a performance evaluation program and all this kind of stuff. And I remember thinking, I am so ill qualified to do this, but I'll see what I can do. Sure. And, there's no internet to tell me what to do. Right. So I'm like going to the library at night at school being like, what's a performance evaluation? I've never even had one. Right. Like
the library. Oh my goodness. Wow. But you're 20, right? So, you'd either
20,
be doing
you're
that
really
or,
eager.
Yeah, you would be out drinking or, watching TV or, screwing around. So, why not?
Yeah, you're like, let's see.
Okay.
It sounds more fun than the college, courses I had to do at the time, probably, as I was shifting majors to business, just to kind of avert being stuck in accounting. And so that's how I ended up in HR. Is somehow, somebody thought this little 20-year-old could figure out HR, and I did.
You figured out that I remember one of my bosses, he was a commander, right? I think he started out as a major he was a major at the time, but he came up to me and said, you know what your thing is, Jeff? And I was like, no. He's like, you just know how to figure shit out. That is a skill. And I was like, oh, FSO. Okay. Is that what I know how to do?
It's so funny you say that because I was just talking to someone the other day about this, where I said, part of the issue I think, and I worry about with my own kids is they don't have to struggle at all.
There's no friction
I watched
anymore.
my
Right.
11-year-old ask Alexa to tell him how to solve a problem. And I thought, no, that's not the way this should be. You need to struggle. It's fun, but you need to struggle a little and,
I'm
figure it out a little more resourcefully than asking Alexa.
Right. Yes. And it is so, oh my goodness, because you sort of started thinking like Claude and Gemini and all these AI bots are your friends. They're really fun to talk to because they're so optimistic.
They are. They are.
Cool. Everything you say is interesting. It's scary, actually.
This is my ongoing joke, because I'm trying to figure it out and I use it in my work here and there. And it's so funny. You'll type in something and be like, give me the data behind, if this kind of business would be successful and what you would do, right? And it's always like, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? I'm waiting for you to tell me it's not a great idea. Tell me when that one comes.
Right. There are safeguards built in. I remember, I was trying to do this really stupid, garage computer project where I bought a bunch of junk computers at garage sales. And I was trying to make them do stuff. I'm a computer guy, right? But these things were just so old. Like I didn't know, like, and then again, it's like you're trying to buy used parts, right? And I remember typing in like, can I plug this CPU into this computer? And it was like, no. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, great. It actually said no.
I finally have crossed the line to that thing it's not willing to let me do.
Well,
Yes.
I think it was afraid that it was going to overheat. Right. And when that could
Interesting.
cause a fire, and then maybe I would sue it. Right.
Yeah.
So if
You'd
I
be
need
right
the
there in the
company.
meta lawsuit and all the other stuff. Yeah.
So they will say no, but it takes a lot. Like if you're just chatting about stuff, you're just like the best person ever, which is,
Oh.
kind of like not good for your brain either.
Not good, but it makes you feel better when you hang
It
out with
does.
teenagers all day
It
when they're like,
does.
you're stupid, you don't know anything. And then
Yes,
Claude
yes.
goes, no, that's a great idea. And you go, at least somebody thought I had a good idea today. Yeah.
That's great. So, okay, you finish college, you get this HR job, and then that becomes like your whole career. That's awesome.
That's really probably the next 20 years of my life. Yeah. So I spent about, I think it ended up being 8 to 9 years in public accounting. I moved to a different firm as head of HR, and then thought, what am I doing? Because I didn't want to be an accountant. And somehow I am now just catering to accountants all day long, and said, this probably is not what I want to do forever. And so I ended up switching from there and spent the next 10 years with a Japanese conglomerate.
Whoa.
Called Mitsui, which I always say is like this huge behemoth organization that nobody knows. I mean, whenever you say it, they think it's a car. They're like, oh, Mitsubishi. And I'm like, no, that's a whole different one.
Yeah.
So I went to the Japanese company, and it was one of those things where a lot of people were like, yeah, that may not be a great idea, right? Like the Japanese have a different work style. You don't probably know what you're getting into.
Right.
And I will say the first 6 to 9 months, I probably said, oh, I didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah. So just to pause you right there, my wife is from Japan, and so the Japanese culture is awesome, right? Yeah. And I only had one sort of tangential experience of working in I'm not going to say Japanese, but Asian. So most of the people in this office were either Chinese or some other Asian, variety. I can't remember where everybody was from, but it was a lot of Asians, right? Like from Hong Kong and all those different. And I think the bank was from, now I'm going to forget. I'll remember before the end of the show, but it was some Asian country's government bank. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Right. But the point is I was working in that Asian culture. Oh my God, it's so different. The boss just wants to tell you everything, very authoritarian. It reminded me in the military, you expect to be told what to do, right? You're doing this. Okay. You don't question it. You just do it, right? But that's not how the civilian world works. Not really. I mean, you can't make somebody work overtime. You can coerce them into working overtime, but you can't make them, right? I mean, not legally anyway. I mean, you can say no if you want to. You just won't get the overtime, theoretically.
Or keep your job. There are different ways they work around that. But
I was a temp, so okay, I'll quit.
It's so true. It's interesting. I always talk about my Japanese time saying it was one of the, I'll go back to the skill stacking thing we started with at the beginning. It was one of those things that just was eye-opening to me about different ways of working and relationship building, right? And things along those lines. So I had come out of, public accounting. So there's not a lot of relationship building. I mean, there was, but people were kind of heads down, doing their work, getting their things done all day long. And, I went into this company where to get anything approved required me to go around to 12 different people to like build consensus. They called it a ringy process, RINGI, ringy process. And so I'd have to go around to all these different people and like have a conversation and talk about the project and get their feedback. And
Wow.
no conversation starts with work, right? It's always, how's your family, Angela?
Sure,
How are the
right.
kids? How are and you would just go, okay, let's go, right?
Right. You
But
and I are
about
very similar. It's just like, how you doing? Is everything okay? Yeah. All right. Finally.
so now the work.
Right.
But, I will say the 10 years I spent with the Japanese forced me to understand the value of relationships, which you need, right? Like you just need. And the older you get, the more you realize how important it is. But at, 30 some odd year old that's sitting inside the organization, I'm thinking, I just want to get my work done. But it forces you to kind of see the different side of it. There are other things that would frustrate the daylights out of you. Like I always tell a story about one time, that's where they used to have the code systems, right? So, back before cell phones and all that kind of stuff, you'd have to send through like a fax kind of thing, like codes to Tokyo, and then Tokyo would send messages back, and we'd do it that way. And somebody typed in something wrong, right? And so it became just a whole thing where there were like 4 memos that arrived at your desk about like a new process to put in the code where like 3 people had to approve before you sent it.
Yes.
And I remember thinking, wow, it's a TBS report in Office Space. I really appreciate that. You know that movie, because at the time I saw that movie, I went, oh my gosh, I'm living this. I'm living this right now.
We all are. If you worked in the office, you were doing it.
But you learn the value of, being smart with your time and a little more risk adverse maybe than what the U.S. culture was.
Totally. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah. Culturally, it's so different. But like it's like there's layers. Like I knew, like I was in the back office, so there was front office, back office. And each person probably had like maybe 2-3 hours of work. And the rest of the time they're just, whiling away the day, looking busy. Right. Like a lot of people do in offices, right? And there's always this like rhythm, of like, it's 3:00, coffee time, right? I just had to get out. But what I wanted to say though is like, after a while, you kind of get used to that sort of like office sort of like rhythm of like how the last thing you're talking about is work, right? Which just drives people like you and me crazy. But what are you going to do? There's not a lot you can do. So like when I watch these Japanese dramas about like office politics, I'm like, I'm stopping and pausing it. I'm like telling my wife, I'm like, I wish work was like this. Where all you do is go to work and work. Anyway, that's not how life is.
It's very, very true. But, I always, I shifted from there to a bank, right? And it was kind of like going full circle again, backwards. And you just went, I kind of miss some of this, like, ways of working, right?
Okay.
And a little bit more personable, right? And a little bit more polite, while they could be polite, but probably not agreeing with you, right? But there was just kind of a politeness to it. So, there's definitely benefits to it. But, I do.
So how long did you end up working for the Japanese company? Was it a while or?
10 years. Wow. So I spent, I did learn a lot, and not even just the Japanese. So I spent the first couple of years with the US region, kind of pulling them together, and then ended up overseeing the Americas region. And so I had Canada and Argentina. And so that was fascinating because I'm like dealing with Brazilians who are being managed by Japanese counterparts that are reporting up to New York, which are just three different cultures that all really fit on different sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And then, so I did that for a couple of years. And then towards the end, got involved with investment companies because we acquired a bunch of companies. And so I'd go into different businesses that were having issues from an HR perspective and try and figure out what was going on. Why is the EEOC coming to talk to us about all these complaints and, what's happening here and things along those lines?
Yeah, that's the nice thing about HR. And like for me, I was always the generalist type too. So like I started out way back when. Oh my goodness! Remember the TV show MASH?
Yes.
So I was very much trained in the Air Force to be like Radar O'Reilly. Like my tech school, we sat in front of IBM Selectric 3 typewriters, like every day, all day, because we typed every day, all day. I was a clerk typist. So like, I had to change, that was like 87, right? So like that was about the same time that computers started being a thing. And before I retired in 2008, I had become a computer guy because I had to. The typewriters were all gone.
That's where you're, it's the option is nothing, or you're going to do this, right? Like,
Well, I think my option, you get to option out of the military, every 4 to 6 years by just not re-upping. But I decided to keep staying, So if you're going to decide to stay in, then you have to do what they say again.
Yeah. They don't usually mess around with that. They expect you to, just announce or to come along and, do what they tell you to do the next round.
There are ways. I mean, if you really don't like it, you can cross train or there are things you can do. I mean, if you really don't like it, but I mean, I just liked it. I was always a computer guy anyway before I got there. So it worked out for me. So let's talk about how you sort of figured out this skill stacking idea and get into that.
Sure. So I never kind of realized I was doing it, but I was doing it the entire time, right? Kind of pivoting industries, pivoting professions, right? Learning to adapt to cultures. I'd be shipped over to Japan for 4 weeks and have to like navigate Tokyo and without a lot of English signs and all that, right? And you're constantly learning and developing different things that it became one of those things where when I sat back, after I left Mitsui, I went to a bank and did it like a CHRO role with a community bank in Brooklyn. And it was one of those things where I was sitting back and going, I like HR. I'm kind of burnt out. I'm really tired of it. Maybe at some point I want to be a CHRO again, but I just want to try something new, right? And I think we all kind of get into that in our career. Like clearly as a young person starting out in the business, going to the library and like trying to teach myself things. I was eager, I was driven, I wanted to get all the way to the top. And sometimes I think you get all the way to the top and then go, this is it. Interesting, right? I didn't know this is what I was working for, which I keep hearing a lot of people talk. They'll say the same thing to me and they're like, I didn't know this was, what the whole thing entailed. Right. And then, with some other things that had come through in life where kind of forced me to say, do I want to keep working like this? I ended up kind of saying, what skills do I have, right? Like, what else could I do that I could then use it to shift in a different way? And that's where I ended up in, what's called like the fractional interim CHRO work. So when we sold the bank in the middle of a pandemic, so that's probably why I was especially feeling burnt out. Sure. I shifted over and said, I did this thing at Mitsui where I would go into businesses and kind of help while they were in transition with HR or try and figure out what was going on and kind of fix it inside the organization. There's got to be a way to make a business out of that, right? And how do I shift over to that and use those skills and then try and go from there? And even when I was in the accounting firm world, they put me through sales training because I don't know if you know much about consulting and accounting firms, but they want to be able to sell everything, right? So they were like, you do HR, and if a client needs HR, you're going to sell HR and then support them. Back before Enron and the whole Arthur Andersen issue, right? And so they put me through sales training as like a 22-year-old to be like, here's how you sell yourself as an HR expert. I still cannot believe anybody signed up for it with me, but
I love sales training. Sales training is the best. But I mean, it's then you get like, you learn, like maybe you met a salesman, and they train you is not what they do.
Mm-hmm. It's a different thing. Yeah, I'm married to a salesperson.
The book
yeah,
is not what they do. No.
No,
that's okay though.
It's a whole different world.
I once took this class. It was about this guy. He was on my podcast. Really good guy, but really into digital marketing and author, and like really good at like email marketing, right? And like a master, right? So I'm listening to him in this like Zoom meeting or whatever they did back then, and he was like, yeah, you got tiers, right? You want them to buy the book and you want them to get the free newsletter, but I want their other money too. I was like,
So how do you do that?
Right.
That's the question.
That's what everybody really wants to know. How to separate money from wallet. Okay. Okay.
What's the process for that? No.
Right. Oh, there's a process. Okay. So did you learn sales? Did you like it?
I liked it enough to be dangerous with it,
Okay.
I think is what I will always say, right?
Sure.
Like, I don't think anyone in their right mind would ever want to sell me or hire me to be a salesperson.
Got it. Right.
But
Right.
I know how to sell myself, right? Like I know,
Okay.
and that's where
Sure.
I think the skill came, right? And I even joke that, when I got into teaching too, which was kind of an extension of learning and development, which I did, and it kind of was a new way to flex some of those skills. I often used to joke that was tapping into my like interacting days, like as a
Sure.
child, where my parents were like, well, if you don't want to do sports, what do you want to do? And I'd be like, acting classes. And they were like, all right, fine. Like, you're clearly never going to become an actor, but we'll give you some acting classes just
Right.
to keep you out of trouble and busy, right?
Right.
But it comes back around. And so the same thing with the sales training, right? Like I could sit there and go, I remember when they talked about lead with their need, right? Not try to tell them what you're selling, but more about what they need. And you'd go,
Right. Okay.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. I always like, somebody said like, this works really well in government service, is like, just be that guy that makes people happy and feel good.
Yeah.
Right? I got good at that. Right. Like go in there and like whatever they're asking, even if you can't make it happen, make an earnest effort.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you walk in and go, yeah, that's not going to happen. That's not what they want to hear. But if you make the earnest effort, a lot of times there's just no way to do a thing on a government computer. You can't do that. You don't want to walk in and go, oh, you're stupid, you can't do that, and then leave. That's not going to make them feel good.
And I mean, it's the same thing in HR, right? You go in and I just was on a call with a client the other day who was like, some days I would just love to fire them all. And I'm like, I hear ya, but let's back it up a couple steps. And, and he says it jokingly, right? Sure. But, on an especially challenging day, but you go,
Yeah.
Sounds good, but let's talk this through a little bit. Yeah.
That would feel great until 5 minutes after you did it.
And then you're stuck doing everyone's job. So
Exactly.
how's that go?
And
yeah.
you have to hire a bunch of new people.
Yeah.
With all the same problems. Yes. Right. Anyway, so that's awesome. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what you talk about in the book and like some of those key takeaways, because I know, thankfully, I'm not in the world of work anymore, but it would be scary if I was, I wouldn't know what to do. Yeah.
It is a scary time. And, and a lot of it is where I keep coming back and talking to people about, and even organizations, right? Because they're dealing with like, what do I do with talent, where the skills are changing.
Right.
And I keep talking to people about like, it's not a matter like you have to just dive in and only know AI now, right? Because that's what everybody thinks. Like,
Right.
I know people who are like doubling down and learning everything they can about AI. That's one thing. But the reality is like you come with a lot of different things. And part of why I got into the book, and I was just a curiosity of mine, is I'd come across with students who'd be like, well, I have to get a job, but like I have no skills. And I'd be like, yes, you do,
You
right?
have
Like
skills. Everybody
I
has
have
skills. Okay.
watched you, right, for the last semester. I know you have skills.
Right.
I know what my teenagers go through. Everybody has skills, right? From, the minute she can figure out a rollover, you got a skill, right? So it's a matter of really being intentional about inventorying it. And how do I really start to assess the different pieces? So that's where I was trying to get into, because skill stacking is not a new concept. It's been around since like 2016, I think, is where it started to become a known term. I do think it came out of someone from the military, right? So it's been one of those things.
First time I heard about it was the Dilbert guy.
Yes.
Scott Adams. He died recently. So sad. I know.
I did not know that.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ruin your day. R.I.P. Scott Adams. He was awesome.
That was, one of my favorites.
Yeah,
sad to hear that.
He wrote some books and he talked about skill stacking.
Yeah. And so he was one of the ones, right? And so it's been out there. But I think, a lot of people are like, yeah, skill stacking. And I'll look at all the jobs I had. And part of what I kept saying is it's more than just your jobs, right? Like it is so much more than your jobs. Yes. It is.
You played Dungeons and Dragons or something.
Yeah. I hear they're trying to like hire air traffic controllers that they can train that are gamers, right? Like it's more than your job. And so this is where I was trying to say there's a framework for us to start to kind of categorize it. Everything you do should be an opportunity for you to build a skill, right? Or you have built a skill. You probably didn't even realize you were doing it. And so that's where I came up in the stack model, right? And said, there are those supportive skills, the ones that are kind of foundational, right? Those are my accounting skills that are still there.
Right.
I don't want to go out and use them, but I will.
Spreadsheet and insert a formula. Right. It starts with equals. Right.
Yeah. I can talk to somebody about what their balance sheet means, right? And all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's supportive skills. They're the things that are foundational, the expertise that I have, employment law, that kind of stuff. That's transferable. I can use it in different ways. Or maybe not. It's industry specific, but nonetheless, it's foundational. And then there's tactical. It's really like, how do I execute on things, right? Like, and I always dig into how do you get things done? Right? Like when things need to get done, how do you get it done? Right? Is it that you're great at managing time and you're a task, kind of task oriented, goal oriented, right? Is it that you're really on top of project management, right? Can you do resource allocation really well, right? Whatever those different pieces are, we do it all the time, right? Like I sit on a board at a local organization that has no money. We're always trying to figure out how to like allocate resources with little bits that are there, right? And so it doesn't come from work necessarily, but we're going to have those experiences and skills come from a lot of different ways. And then there's the adaptive ones, right? The adaptive ones are around really how can I pivot, right? How can I learn and take feedback and then go from there, right? I was just on a call with a client a little while ago about an employee that was being given some feedback and her response was like to fight it the whole way through. And I just said, that's a problem, right? Like in today's world, you gotta take it and kind of synthesize it, and not to say you got to agree with it all, but you got to be willing to listen to it and then say, here's maybe a takeaway, and the rest, the heck with you, I could care less, right? But
it's almost like you need a little detachment, right?
Yeah, and be able to learn from it, right? And build in that feedback mechanism and be able to understand that things are just going to keep changing, right? So you've got to, how do you start to shift constantly? And then there's C, which is the complementary skills. So those are the ones that are really about how I relate to people, right? This is going back to my Japanese days. And, how, and if you look at the research, the most important things we're going to need going forward, right? Like I think Jamie Dimon just came out and talked about EQ, emotional intelligence being the most important thing people will need in the age of AI, right? And, developing that and how you connect with people. I will say
this, like AI has no idea about what emotions are about. None whatsoever. Right?
No.
None.
I
those rails are not created yet. I mean, so it's just overly optimistic, right? And if you hit a rail, you hit it hard. It's like, stop. We have to end this conversation. Right.
It's so true. Well, there was an article about, AI in healthcare, right? And it was talking about how AI could be used to like automate things and all this kind of stuff. And, one of the things they talked about was facilities. And I thought, I'm a little concerned about this only because I had a daughter who kind of was in and out of the hospital a while as a child, and which is part of kind of what made me reevaluate life and kind of say, maybe I want to have a little bit more time in my schedule. And I was in there and she had this thing called Kawasaki's disease. So not only was I working for a Japanese company, but she somehow ended up with a Japanese disease, unrelated, but a Japanese named disease, right? And it's this thing where they have to give them a blood transfusion to kind of make sure they don't end up with heart issues and all of this kind of stuff. Very rare, typically for Asian boys. Somehow my little white 2-year-old daughter got it. Not sure how it all worked out, but I was sitting in the room with her, clearly upset, right, as a brand new mom or a newer mom. And they were about to come in and start the blood transfusion. And they bring in all this equipment because they gave me some statistic, like 40% of the time they could go into like cardiac arrest at this age if you do blood transfusion. So we got to make sure we're ready for it. And I'm having a meltdown, right? And they all leave. And this woman comes in to like get the towels and sheets and whatever. And comes in and like, and this is the moment I'm like just breaking down, and hugs me and says, "Oh, honey, I'm going to make sure this room is clean so that there's no germs and she's safe and she'll be okay." And I just think that's one of those most impactful moments of my entire experience with my daughter, right? Like it wasn't the doctor. Clearly the doctor did a lot of amazing things, but it's this woman, right? So like if a robot walked in, that's not the human connection I needed at that point in time.
The robot is not going to know you're freaking out.
No. So this is where the complementary skills come in, right? The ability to like have empathy and like, connect with another human being. Right. Robots can't take that over just yet.
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sure once they get there, they'll be better. But
it's a little awkward to hug a robot. I don't know, but
I think I heard somebody really smart. He was like a physicist or something, right? So like I was again watching another TV show from Japan, and like you've got this like corporation like vice president, right? And he was sort of like the star of the show. And in Japanese, it's Japanese dramas are straight down the line, right? I just kept telling my wife, Iki always wins. You don't need to know anything else about the show. Iki always wins. And he always won, right? But at some point, like, Iki had to not do what the president said for the good of the country, right? And I paused it and I said, see, I would never do that ever. I am not that guy. If you want that guy, if you need an Iki, I'm not Iki. I'm going to straight down the line just do what my boss says because I don't care. I'm not invested in what's going on here. That was my whole outlook on the military. It was like, these guys are crazy. I'm just following orders and I want to get the hell out of here.
But that's corporate America, honestly. Like I just posted about the number of leaders that are just disengaged, but they're like showing up and going through the motions, right? Because they're burned out. And I mean, there's not a knock on leaders, right? I've sat in that role. Right. You're exhausted and everybody's changing the game on you. And like, you're just chasing all these different things. And people are just showing up and like, whatever. I'm just going to like try and get through. Right. And you go, oh, this is just not, no wonder everybody's miserable, right? Like,
it's going to take a while. Like Iki, was working for Japan, right? He knew this needed to be done. He was trying to secure oil rights in Iran. So Japan could have its own oil supply, right?
Yeah.
And his boss said, "Stop it!" Right? We've wasted too much money, and he was like, "I'm not stopping." Right? AI can't do that. If you tell AI to stop, they have to stop, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, anyway. Thank God.
It's so true. And it's also not able to see the
Big picture.
subtext and the
Right.
things that are going on, right? A lot of times I'll sit with clients of mine who are like owners of small and mid-sized businesses, and they'll talk about like, well, I've got this happening here and this happening here. And you could feed it into AI, and I'm sure they would give them a whole ton of different like things happening, right? But like being in their office and seeing the things going on and seeing how people are interacting and how people react in meetings and things along those lines, there's this whole subtext of stuff that you like. It's you can't see it through a chat message, right? And so that's the piece that if we hone in on that, then fabulous, right? Like you use AI to do stuff I don't love, right? Like that general ledger stuff, I am super happy people have figured out how to let somebody else do it, because maybe I would have loved accounting if I didn't have to do that.
Right.
It could have been a different world, all right?
There's certain things that, like computers and AI are really good at, drafting things. It's awesome, right? Keep doing that. Like really good at show notes. My life is so much better now. Like I read the show notes, but it's a really good draft. Just correct the errors. Like, no, it's this person's a he, not a she, or she and not a he. They miss things like this.
Little things.
Little things. Little things.
That's the people side, right? Like you interacted with the person and went, they looked a little differently, or talked a little differently, or they meant something differently than like what you heard as an interpretation of the word. Or
they don't like the nuance, right?
Yeah,
like they don't. Right, then the nuances thing, like they'll just summarize things and they're like, no. I'll just delete whole paragraphs. That's not what we were talking about. But that's okay. I mean, if it's a slightly more nuanced conversation, it's over their head. Have you ever played with any of the image generation toys out there yet?
I have.
Okay. And what is your experience? I mean, give us some comments. I mean, was it fun? Was it interesting?
It's probably somewhat right 40% of the time is my experience. Okay. And part of it is, this is where so the last letter in my stack is knowledge seeking. And I'm in this like whole mission that you should just learn things because you find them interesting and exciting, right? It's this like polymath concept.
Right.
Yeah. And then at some point you make the connectors, right? But like to learn things because you feel like you have to is one piece, but building. So anyway, I have been playing with it to kind of try, like I went out with a white paper on like how organizations can put in skill building and into the workplace. And I had to play with it about 20 times to be like, this is the image I'd love to create, right? Like I've got these like letters, and it'd come back and I'd be like, no, I don't know what that is. Like, and first of all, you misspelled it. Look at the letters, right? Like, that's not even correct. And then you go back and I'd be like, they need to be interconnected. And I forget what it came back with, like something like a rose shape thing. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with what but yeah, it was, and
like if you get like super basic, or like generic, right?
Yeah.
Like if you say like, make this like a rainbow in the style of Picasso, it'll look awesome. Right? Because that's pretty easy. But the thing that makes me laugh the most is like if you're trying to have like a human, say, cartoon character express an emotion, it's not going to work out. It'll be way too happy or way too mad or psychotic. It's like the faces that it draws is like, really? Is that what you think people look like? So like I got the feedback like, I was like, how do you, like, I was trying to find what humans say about prompting AI. And it was like, be careful using any emotion words when it comes to facial expressions. So instead of saying like a woman with a happy face, say like a woman with a slight smile. That'll work out, right? A slight smile, it can figure that out. But if you say a woman looking happy, it'll be like this grin that goes on forever.
That's fascinating to me, and now explains. So I mentioned the rose thing.
It's okay. The dogs are telling us it's time to wrap up.
Somebody, of course, will come. The rose thing I came because, sorry, they'll stop in a second. There's nobody at my door, so. Let me yell at them really quick.
Okay, I'll hit pause. That was a very effective yell.
Part of my skills, my skill ability is dog trained.
Yeah.
But so the roasting came about because the model I created was, I was trying to think of like, how do you redo architecture, talent architecture inside of organizations? So I came up with the acronym GROWing, right? And I was like, there's gig-based marketplace, reward, renovation, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, find a way to put this together and interconnected. And that's how I got the rose. And I was like, no, we're not on the same page. I don't need a garden, but I see where you went in that direction. So
it's hard.
Shame on me.
Well, no, you're working on your prompting skill, right? Yeah. Like that'll be a thing that people have to learn how to do. Yeah. I played with it. I mean, you can get it to make things that are okay, right? I mean, like I was building a storyboard for some dumb reason, and the storyboard did end up looking, occasionally stupid. But I was kind of okay with it, right? I was just trying to get something down, Yeah. And I didn't want to spend that much time doing it. But I get you. Yeah. They just go off. It's like, what are you doing?
But it's the nuance, right? Like that's where the humans come into play. Right. And so if we could figure out how to tap into that, right? And, and this is where I actually was talking to some of the college students the other day who were like, I don't know what I'm going to do and all this, right? And I was like, figure out where you can take your skills as a human being, right? And then find an avenue that works for you, right? Because they all think they have to be in like AI. And I'm like, that's not always it, right? Like you got to know AI. I think that's like a baseline expectation now, but figure out what your skills are that really you could leverage, right? And whatever that is, figure out how you could use AI to do it, right? Or a job that kind of
like not everybody has that sort of like nurturing kind of quality, right? That can hug a stranger and make them feel good, right? So like figure that kind of stuff out. Yeah. So, okay, we have talked for almost an hour now. I know there's a running clock around. Over an hour. Look at that. So let's talk about how folks can best get in touch with Angela Finlay.
Yes.
Say your website again. I'll say it too. Let's see, stackingyourcareer.com. I'm sure on socials and stuff.
Yes. So I am at stackingyourcareer.com. If you go to the podcast page, I actually have a link to the book at a discounted rate. I also have, I'm going to be launching an app where you can kind of upload your resume and different things and be able to kind of look at what your skill stack looks like, a free app to be able to do that. So that will be coming shortly. So definitely get on the list for that. I'm on LinkedIn, Angela Blum Finlay. You will find me there. Or I also have a YouTube channel, Stacking Your Career, where I've been pushing out videos and talking about these concepts. And so hopefully people can follow me there and learn a little bit more about what to do with your skill stack.
That's awesome. So like I've been into this thing. Have you heard of this thing called the FIRE movement? It stands for financial independence / retire early. So like a lot of people like to take out the retire early. I just happen to do it, but But so there's this podcast / website called ChooseFi. The thing is, though, in order to be financially independent, you need a way to make money.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way. And not everybody can be a YouTuber and make $5 million, right? Not everybody's Mr. Beast. All kids want to do that. I want to be a YouTuber. It's not working, right?
Somehow not working. There are plenty out there.
So yeah,
but it's interesting.
that's my thing. Is you're gonna have to get a job.
Yeah. And you've got to, and they're saying, I mean, if we all continue to work, right? Which I'm sure at some point we will. Again, like we talked about this in Transcontinental Railroad, like the world shouldn't end. Hopefully, we just go through these cycles, right?
Right.
But with that being said, they talk about we're in a 60-year career, right? Trajectory for a lot of the like my kids, right?
Sure.
And I say, do something you like, but be smart about what skills you're building and really keep track of it along the way so that you can constantly be able to pivot and shift and adjust, right? Because I don't care who you are. Nobody wants to do a career for 60 years.
Yeah.
You will burn out. You will be bored. Year 20, 25. I mean, there's part of the reason why there's the U-shaped curve of happiness and everybody's miserable in their late 40s, right? So you can't sustain that. So if we think about it as skill building and stacking our skills, then it's the opportunity for us to say, I'll do this for a little while, and then I'm going to take my skills and I'm going to do whatever my next interest is, right? And to me, that's how you become financially independent, is my ability to take all these things I'm building and then be able to kind of pivot and shift and do different things because I know my worth, right? I know how to articulate where I stand today, and then I can use that to do whatever the next iteration is of me when I look at my career.
Sounds awesome. You've done well. Thank you so much, Angela Finlay. We hung out for an hour. We had a good chat.
Thank you. This has been great.
You have a good one, and I will talk to you again soon, maybe, if you want to come back.
Always.
All right. Let me see if I can figure out how to end this thing. I'm skill building now. I know how to do this.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.